Today's episode is the behind-the-scenes look into our lives and the behind-the-scenes running of the podcast, which you never knew you needed.
Indeed.
We'll be getting a little bit into our philosophy, a little bit into our own personal struggles with the kind of ideals which we often espouse on this podcast, those which are about finding happiness, degrowth, staying off the internet and things like that, as well as we will be just generally trying to lay out some kind of guideline for living an artful life in the modern world.
Sounds like a great episode, Aaron.
Yeah, Alicia, you've got a nice quote to start us off with.
Yeah, it's an excerpt from Dante's Part 2 of the Divine Comedy, Purgatory.
Nice.
Here it goes. And the dawn rose triumphant, making flee the morning breeze before her, and far off I recognized the shimmering of the sea. So we along that lonely plain did move, like one who's lost the road and seems to go with wasted steps till reposed thereof. And coming to a place where dew can show resistance to the sun, since day-long shade keeps the earth cool and exhalation slow. Gently upon the turf my master spread both hands, and I, not taken unawares, but understanding what this purported, held up to him my face begrimmed with tears, and so he brought my native hue once more to light, washed clean of hell's disfiguring smears.
Thanks for that, Alicia.
You're welcome. So what made us choose this quote?
You might think it seems kind of random and, 13th century Catholic.
Oui, un peu.
Which it is. But upon reading that, I just thought it was a really lovely way of describing how Dante had the stench and filth of hell washed off of him by the morning dew.
Yeah.
Exactly that. And I thought that seemed somewhat fitting for this episode because we've all been through hell and back these last couple months with Corona.
Yeah.
So it's about kind of dusting yourself off, wiping your face with some morning dew, and just making yourself fresh to face the world again. Let's say that.
I like that. I've been reading the Odyssey, and Dawn is a goddess.
Okay.
Correct? And I never knew that about Greek mythology. And I really like the image of like every morning there being this like golden-haired figure coming to make the world a better place, because Odysseus in the book, pretty much every night there's like a storm that just like throws him and his team back, or there's a cyclops trying to eat them. But then every morning dawn comes and like kind of restarts them. So I like that image.
You're right about the storms pretty much every day knocking him around.
Yeah.
I think the alternative title for the Odyssey is actually Odysseus' no good, very bad, terrible day.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Is that the title?
I don't know.
So for this episode, we each basically brought some things we wanted to talk about, which are united under the themes that I already mentioned. Mm-hmm. Did you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I have 3. The first one is that I don't learn enough. And I've been trying to remedy that by reading more, doing more puzzles, working on learning a language, but
what kind of puzzles?
Sudokus and real puzzles, like fit the pieces together.
Yeah, jigsaws.
You could call them that. But I still feel like I'm not learning enough. And I feel like it's kind of a result of so many years of schooling, which it never facilitated learning for me.
No.
It facilitated memorization, which we both agree is a good skill.
Yeah.
And kind of how you learn things. But it never, like, you spend so much of your time doing the schoolwork, you never actually learn the things you want to learn.
Yeah.
So I know a lot about, like, really random world events or math, but it's like, why don't I know about art history? Why don't I know how to paint? Why don't I know about how to live a healthy life? Things like that.
Yeah, and the difficult thing is learning those because the resources available to us we think are not so conducive to health, wellness, well-being.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I want to learn about those, you have to go online, and you go online to try and figure out what time to go to bed or what position to sleep in. This was just some of the gripes, because I've been like really uncomfy when I was sleeping. And I'm just like, I want to find the right position to sleep in. Okay. And there's just nothing on the internet. It's like, how are humans, like, there must be one best way. And I guess it's sleeping on your back, but it's just like, you have to go around so many different, like, you just can't find one answer.
That was a strange tangent to go on.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that the library is closed, right?
Exactly.
All the libraries are closed.
I was getting really into libraries.
Yeah, me too. So, well, let's get into that. there was a library on our campus which was very classical, very quiet, very kind of, I don't know, expensive looking.
Yeah.
And it had these desks in basically the basement in the stacks with all the classics.
Yeah.
Which were really old school desks which were kind of closed off, almost like a mini room.
Yeah,
but small,
and there was just
like
like
a
no
little cubicle.
sound could like penetrate it. It was
Little cubicle.
Cool. Yeah.
And I had taken to going there because otherwise I was finding it hard to read. I had roommates, and so my apartment was kind of always loud and too bustling.
Yeah.
I also didn't like being closed into my room. I like the thought that I was going somewhere.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that, surprisingly, and we probably covered this in our modern education episode, on our campus there were so few places to actually get any work done, which
Yeah, exactly.
is impressive and strange and disappointing.
Yeah,
all
there's
in
like
different ways.
study spaces in one of the buildings that I have a lot of my classes in. And the two study spaces, one is just in the atrium. So it's like every single classroom for 5 levels up is surrounding it, and you can hear noise from all of them. And it's just a bunch of lounge chairs. And then on the second floor, there's this really slippery glass study area. Like, it's just like loud, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In this library, it was just so great because you were surrounded by the classics, and like it just was nice.
But what I wanted to say about the library was that I felt like it probably indulged an unhealthy dependence I was growing, which is for absolute peace and quiet to focus on anything, which is something that I feel is somewhat new in me. I used to be able to read and daydream even and write and work on things, not, in the middle of a crowded train station, but it didn't have to be completely quiet.
Yeah,
and
that's
that
true.
I feel that's something that's changed in me, and it's not changed for the better. When you think about it, your ideal state of imagination, I guess, or escape, or just being able to pay attention would be that you can do it anywhere.
That's true.
So I wonder, can we brainstorm some ways to regrow that? I would say just to try really hard.
I feel like that's all you can do.
And, mindfulness is a buzzword. Trying to fix your mind so that you can better hone your attention skill, basically. Anything else on you don't learn enough?
I had a really long list. One of the things was that we don't write or draw enough. Like, we don't create things with our ideas or try and sort them. I know you do. You're always writing things down. But I mean, I feel like we can get better at it, or personally I can get better at it.
You think that's something that would help you organize your thoughts?
I think so.
I like it because it's kind of like knocking something off a list for me. If I have a bunch of thoughts knocking around, I have to get them down quickly. Otherwise, 1, I fear losing them, and 2, they distract me from anything, the task at hand or other thoughts.
Yeah, I feel like I can only have one thought at a time, but until I write it down or do it, nothing else can get in there. So sometimes there'll be months and I just have like one idea in my head, and if I don't, even if I wrote it down on a list, I'm sure I would help get it out. So I just want to write more. I want to literally write more, like maybe write stories or try and write news articles or something. Like, I just want to be creating things, because we were discussing the other day on our walk that we think we both have kind of philosopher mindsets.
Well, I mean, that sounds kind of arrogant when we say it like this.
I know, but there's people who are just like disposed to be philosophers, but I was never taught that was a thing.
I think the train of thought that we were on was that I was wondering, what's the word for when you're preoccupied with thinking about thoughts and about the nature of thoughts and the nature of existence and things like that? And I was just saying, I think the word for that is philosophy.
Yeah.
So us, who we like to think about those things.
Yes. I always have. And I feel like it'd be beneficial even just for me to be writing these observations down. Not that I feel like they need to be shared with the world, but it's just like, I feel like for me it's a good idea.
And learning about other philosophers, right?
Yes.
And
I had that on my list of things to do. Philosophers and psychology I want to learn more about. What's your first topic, unless you wanted to mention anything else on this?
Yeah, I mean, learning's kind of the underlying theme that runs through the whole episode.
Yeah, I think so. Another thing I wrote down under this heading was about the podcast in particular. I feel like our episodes could be categorized by subject, or like we could have philosophy episodes, art episodes, and they don't have to neatly fit into those categories, but maybe like changing it up so that we brand them like that a little bit more. I don't know. It was just a thought. We can probably discuss farther later.
Let's talk about learning in relation to the podcast then.
Yeah.
Because we like to think of the podcast as each week we're researching and retaining information about a topic that we're interested in, and then gradually building up our knowledge and forming opinions on these things and building on previous episodes.
Yeah. And encouraging people to learn along with us.
Do you think that's been the case for you?
A little bit. I've definitely learned a lot about the really research-heavy episodes, but sometimes I have forgone doing the research and just kind of relied on my previous knowledge when I kind of missed an opportunity to learn about something that I wanted to learn about.
Yeah. I mean, I was noticing that in my classes. We talked about this a little bit during the modern education episode.
Mm-hmm.
But I was becoming more and more lax with my classes in that, because I've always, again, this sounds pretty arrogant, but I've always just been really good at getting grades without knowing the content or without studying or anything, just because I think I know what teachers want, and I know I'm just good at tests and assignments, regardless of the subject.
Yeah.
I'm just good at formatting them and making them and getting grades from them. And that was kind of a skill in university because it allowed me to pay no attention to required courses which were mostly irrelevant to, one, my degree, and two, what I needed to know or what I wanted to know just in life. Something like macroeconomics, something like statistics. I just didn't need or want to know these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't put much effort into them despite getting good grades.
Yeah.
But that was kind of, I think it started to border into laziness because it started to be my strategy for, even for courses which objectively are things that I wanted to learn, or at least closer to. Mm-hmm. So some of my environmental courses, for instance, that happened with, and I noticed that this year, and that's something I definitely want to remedy. So even formal education, there are different types of learning, and you want to, it's about standards. You kind of have to hold yourself to a standard as often as you can, otherwise I think you let yourself slip, or that's the case with me anyway.
Yeah, I think that's what I kind of started off with. This is a good way to bring it back around to the facilitation of learning. It was just like you could get the grades without actually learning anything, just if you knew the formula, basically, for assignments. So trying to get out of that mindset in everyday life, and again, in formal education, taking courses online, maybe if I'm able to get myself out of that mindset, then I would actually retain something from online learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest... Okay, so can we move on from education?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the same boat. I want to read more. I want to waste less time. I want to try harder when it comes to university courses. I'm pretty good at holding myself to reading, knock on wood. I like reading at least one fiction book and one non-fiction book at a time, just so I have some choice when it comes to reading.
Yeah.
I'm also writing a novel for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And my biggest difficulty is holding myself to actually writing that, because I have it pretty much all planned in my head, but I just often can't bring myself to do it. Mm-hmm. And my attitude towards writing mirrors a lot my attitude towards certain forms of exercise, like running.
Yeah. In
that I really don't look forward to it. I don't particularly enjoy it while I'm doing it, but after I'm done it, I never feel better.
Yeah, you're like, feel at the top of the world, basically.
Yeah, because I know I've done something beneficial, and it's also one of those things that the more you do it, the more you'll like it. Runners always say that.
Yeah, I know that I was listening to someone talk about like the runner's high, and they said it takes like a year to get it, but once you start getting it, it's just like the life.
Yeah, I mentioned running because I wanted to list. Okay, I'm skipping ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just go straight to the things that we don't like that we do.
Okay.
You start.
I don't like how much I spend time on YouTube.
Yeah, that was my top one as well. Because, and the thing for me is, it's not even YouTube, it's just like, I'll find myself watching real garbage. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like the other day we watched that video by some guy, and it was like songs that sound exactly the same. We watched it for about 10 minutes.
I know.
And neither of us were interested. It was somewhat entertaining, but it was mostly just, what do they say, like, zombie content. Yeah. Like it's something that you don't notice that you're watching. You disembody for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to go too deep into that because we've talked about it in other episodes. Mm-hmm. But so watching random content on YouTube, if it's purposeful content and it's beneficial and it's relevant, then I say, do it. Just do it in moderation. But if it's just mindless entertainment, that's something that I really need to stay away from. And often I'm really good at convincing myself that something which is actually mindless entertainment, I convince myself that it's very useful or educational or relevant or whatever. So yeah, we kind of have to be wary of ourselves, because I think we're our greatest deceivers a lot of the times.
Yeah, I think so.
And the other thing for me is about YouTube is that I really need to stop doing it while I eat.
Yeah.
I think eating's just kind of this barometer for the rest of your life. If you're eating well, and that means the food itself, because, you know, that's been slipping for me with a lot of junk food. It's the summer. And your manner of consumption, meaning, are you by yourself in the corner of a room watching on the internet?
Yeah.
Or are you maybe with other people? Or even if you're not with other people, are you eating mindfully and paying attention to each bite, as silly as that sounds?
No, I remember in my yoga class that I took in high school, she made everybody take one raisin and chew it like an insane amount of times.
It increases gratitude and mindfulness.
Yeah, and it's better for your body. You digest better. It's just all around good. For me, food would probably be my number one thing. I've been trying to think, like, every day, at the end of the day, I'm kind of like, I did nothing today. But I can't identify the ways that I'm wasting time.
Huh.
Which is weird, because, like, I don't watch TV anymore, really, at all. Like, if my family's watching, I'll sit with them for, like, 20 minutes. And, again, I'm only subscribed to, like, 3 YouTube channels, and they're exclusively the videos I watch. So that's, like, probably another 30 minutes. But it's just, I'm trying to figure out ways to identify how I'm wasting time.
I love that point.
How I can use it more efficiently.
I think that's a really good point. Because one of the ways which I think technology is kind of insidious in our lives is that when, let's say you're watching some random YouTube video, such as Family Feud compilations, or something else I have written down here, which we don't do anymore, but we used to do too regularly, is when we used to have lunch or dinner in the meal hall on campus when we lived on residence, is we used to just do BuzzFeed quizzes while we ate. And it was funny, so it was kind of a social, humor thing.
Yeah.
But also it was completely mindless.
Of course.
And this is like the trashiest of trashy pop entertainment. It's like, which Kardashian's toenail are you? Or which Glee character are you from each season? So, yeah, one thing that I find helpful is to consider it like this. Before you do something, I like to ask myself, is this worth devoting 7 minutes of my life to, if it's a YouTube video? And I like phrasing it exactly like that. Is this worth devoting X amount of time of my life to?
Yeah.
Because that makes it seem heavier. Everyone kind of struggles, I think, with making the most of their time. But also, people don't really ask themselves what they find meaningful a lot. So you say that you're often ending the days thinking that you did nothing.
Yeah.
What are some things that you feel are worthwhile, which you do?
I do a lot of podcast work, run, or bike. I do think baking is worthwhile because it's really good for my mental health.
This is something
but I want to read more and just, I don't know what, because like I've been spending all my time doing these things, but I still at the end of the day feel like I've done nothing, but I don't know what would be more.
I like that you mentioned baking. I feel like if you legitimately enjoy something, it's really not a waste of time. Even if it has no tangible benefits, if it's something you love doing, it's like, you shouldn't stop yourself from doing that. And you love baking, so
I know.
That's what it is.
Yeah. I feel like nowadays that I'm not going to the gym, not going to the library, nothing feels concrete.
Well, it's also the case that you're not moving around.
Yeah.
If you do everything in one house or thereabouts, it really doesn't feel like you've gotten out and about in the day.
That's a good point. This is more just turning into a self-help for me. But yeah, today I basically sat on my laptop, made videos for the podcast, networked, read, did some puzzles, all sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably it.
Another good way of putting that is a lot of people, myself included, sometimes struggle to sleep.
Yeah.
And the best advice I've found is to do things in the day which make you really tired.
Yeah, that is definitely the best way because I've tried get off your phone an hour before bed.
Yeah.
Drink water, but it's if you just exhaust yourself, you'll have the best sleep of your life. And people are I don't want to be exhausted, but yes you do, because you're going to wake up feeling so good.
I think that might be one of the issues with sleep for our generation, is that this isn't calling us out for being lazy or whatever, because we do things, like you said, it's podcast work, it's putting together videos, editing videos, all these things, but you're not physically moving, so you're not physically getting tired.
Yeah.
You're mentally getting tired, which leads us to these kind of reprieves.
Yeah.
It doesn't heal us, but it provides reprieves, which is BuzzFeed quizzes, YouTube videos, TV, all that stuff. So, okay, you also mentioned productivity, that you feel you're not productive enough.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I have that I wanted to mention was the idea of pure productivity, humans as basically efficiency machines, and how we should fill our days, versus the opposite, something like living an artful life, being appreciative, slowing down, smelling the roses, all those things. What's your take on that?
You just need balance. I feel like I do have a really good balance of that, in that I try and always be doing something productive that's like technically productive, like go for a walk, so like you're exercising and moving, reading, but always being mindful while doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas maybe I used to, while I'm cooking, while I'm working, I'd be listening to a podcast at the same time, snacking at the same time, like I'd be multitasking. But if you focus on one thing at a time, it brings mindfulness and slowness into these more productive things.
Also, you actually get more done because you do things properly.
100%.
Like, you might have been listening to that podcast, but how much were you retaining from it?
Yeah. Like, I've stopped listening to podcasts while running, which is a big change for me because that's all I did for most of my adult life.
The thing with technology, I find, is that, okay, I wanted to mention this earlier, I got derailed. When I'm watching a video or something, or more likely in that brief moment, which is some kind of evolutionary manifestation of when we were hunters and we would see an animal on the plain, we'd be like, yeah, I see you, this is the hunt, I'm going to go for it. This is kind of the action-filled moment. I think it's something like that, maybe, when you spot a video that you want to watch or an article that you want to click on. It's like a moment of excitement, and you rush over to it, which is a really sad way of putting it. But it's that I find when we're spending time online, it's usually not because we want to, or because it's something that you actually want to do. If it's something that you're looking forward to, maybe it's, I don't know, a new episode of a TV show which you legitimately love and find value from, and that's, dropping on Netflix. Go for it, watch that TV show, or play that video game.
Yeah.
Don't play it for too long, don't binge watch the TV show.
Yeah, just find ways to insert it into your life.
Right, but I find it's often not that. It's usually less of a, I want to click this, and more of a, like a compulsion, like an addict. I think we're all kind of low-key addicted to the internet.
Yeah.
But it's not about I want to do this or I enjoy doing this. It's that I feel compulsed to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So that made me think about, and similarly, once we're finished with it, we don't feel better. We don't feel happier.
Yeah.
Any happier for having watched the thing. Usually we feel worse.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask the simple question: what actually is happiness?
The simple question.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my third point for my 3 points, but I guess I'll skip down to my notes. I wrote that I want to live a more romantic and artistic and intellectual life, while also focusing on my community and my physical well-being. Because I feel like it's hard to connect those two, your mind and your body and community.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like happiness is trying to find that balance.
Yeah, it's basically the biggest question of human existence.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly is, do I work on myself? Do I work on the community and the world? Or should I just be kind of a, spiritual man on the mountain who doesn't descend from the mountain to share the wisdom to the town?
Yeah. I wrote also that my entire life I've kind of felt like all of the world's problems, like, I need to fix them. It's just like, no one else needs to, like, it's just me. Like, I don't want anyone else to have that burden. And, like, it's not like, obviously I'm not the only person that feels that, but I've always felt that.
Do you think that's a modern condition?
I don't know.
I feel like, it's probably not, because the youth, people always categorize those as, the people who think they're going to save the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, one, it comes on at a younger age, and two, there is more of a feeling of ownership and what you said, burden.
Yeah.
Because we're so inundated with images of climate change, etc., from a young age.
Yeah, and it's like you could technically, like, I've been thinking lately, it's like I'll just sacrifice happiness. I'll sacrifice relationships and like feeling good about how I look and stuff and just work myself to the bone. But it's like I feel like that's not actually the most productive way. But if I just went all the way the other way, I wouldn't be happy either. So it's, finding a balance between the two.
So you think that's happiness?
Yeah.
Finding a balance between working on yourself and working on the world?
Yeah.
I was thinking more practically, like in the moment, when are you happy?
Okay.
What makes you happy?
Mm-hmm.
Does it even exist? Because one observation I made from a pretty young age when I was playing video games, which are, supposedly for fun,
yeah,
was that when I was playing, I would never describe myself as, wow, this makes me happy. It was never happy, I was so rarely smiling.
Yeah.
And, an element of that was frustration because of the competitive aspect or whatever.
Yes.
But I think that's kind of the key to it, is what people often describe as for fun or for competition. The same with sports and games.
Yeah.
It's more that you're striving for something.
I think so.
It's more that there's a clear goal and there's a pursuit.
Yeah.
And the few times which I would kind of openly smile and, be in awe at the game or be happy, quote unquote, was more marveling at the artistic aspects. If there was a really beautiful, landscape or a really funny line of script or really awesome song or something like that, that's when people, if you're dancing to a really good song, people often describe themselves as happy then. Or if you're watching a really fun movie, that's happiness. So it's something to do with consuming good art as well.
I think that's
or appreciating
really
good art, I should say.
That's very well put.
It's some combination of knowing your goal, striving towards it, and appreciating the art of the world around you.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at, but then I just went off on a bit of a tangent.
I knew the video game thing was a good analogy.
It's a very good analogy, because it's like, if you have no goal, you're not striving for something, and you're just constantly surrounded by the good things, and that's all you're doing, I feel like I wouldn't be happy.
You'd be lazy.
But I like having happiness as like a bit of a
there needs to be a challenge,
Yeah.
There needs to be a reason for being, as the French would say, raison d'etre.
Oui.
Some of the things which I said make me feel good and tactile and like a part of the world are reading real books, being outside, just, it's remarkable how much more at peace I feel.
Yeah.
Whatever the weather. More naturey places, I mean.
Yeah.
Exercising, that's like a neurochemical thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Writing and socializing, which is, the one of those which I'm least likely to do, even when it isn't a quarantine. Because just like, let's say running and writing, before it, I'm always like, no, I don't want to. And even during it, I'm like, no, this isn't great. But afterwards I say, wow, that made me feel happy. And one thing I wanted to mention on the episode is that no memories are ever made when you're by yourself on a screen.
Very good.
Which is something I said to you last year.
Yes.
Like how many moments of you on a screen can you actually recall now?
None,
specific
really.
ones. When we're bringing up memories, they are 99% of the time with other people, I think.
Yeah, or with nature, I think. It was the sunrise you saw or cold water you felt. Like those are the memories. Yeah.
Feelings.
Feelings.
in your on your body.
Yeah.
Not fake ones.
Very good.
Your next point?
I have 2 more points because we kind of started touching on my last one, so maybe I'll jump into that. I said I've been kind of struggling to find a way to be present in a world that kind of like feels like a nightmare.
Whoa.
Like I've been feeling very like kind of dissociated from like the present. I feel like I'm living like either slightly in the future, slightly in the past. I've been really struggling with being present because it's just like if you start to think about everything that's going on right now, it's just like a lot. And I feel like that's always the case no matter what time it is. I know right now is especially crazy, but there's always struggles in the world, and I just have, I don't know.
That's a good
point. I've just
point.
been really struggling with that, and I feel like the internet really doesn't help.
Yeah, there's politics and climate change and all those things, but even on a personal level, we have been struggling with Corona and school being cancelled or put online for the next semester, possibly more, and trying to figure out where to live, and also graduation and post-graduation and plans like that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a big struggle, and I think that's stressing us both out a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think yesterday for me, my conclusion was basically, it's better just to focus on the day-to-day. Focus on improving yourself, focus on improving your situation as you're in it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you just kind of have to have a trust and a faith that things work out. And that works for me pretty well. Once I'm pretty good at just switching into that mindset.
Yeah.
Mostly because I have a strange, mostly impervious nature to any kind of stress, as you can testify.
Yes. Aaron doesn't get stressed. Meanwhile, I don't get stressed, but I get anxious really badly.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, I guess. But my worry is that I think I'm very good at living in the day to day, but then it sneaks up on me and it'll be 2 years in the future and I'll be like, I was just having, not that I'd be just having a good time, but it's like I haven't saved enough money. Like I've been...
The point is, if you're properly living in the day to day and you know where you want to go, personally, you know, individually, then you'll get there.
That's true. If I have a goal.
So that's kind of how I ground myself. You know, that mindfulness element comes from
having goals, but breaking them down into like the hour by hour.
Yeah, but not turning myself into an efficiency coffee drinking monster like a Gary V character.
Yeah.
Any other points you had?
I had one that I kind of started to get into when I was mentioning my first point about there's just no guide to living a healthy life. Because I remember growing up, I was like, oh, there's the Canada Food Guide. But then
That's a really good analogy.
But then one day, I tried to follow the Canada Food Guide and just was so sick. It was just like eat 8 bagels and 4 pieces of meat. And I couldn't do it.
Yeah, they didn't know what they were talking about. That was completely arbitrary. But diet's always shifting like that. So whatever's recommended now in 20 years will also be considered nonsense.
But it's just like there must be a definite, this is what humans should eat living in this climate. This is how many hours a day you should exercise.
It's mostly common sense. Drink a ton of water. Eat foods which I don't even go by nutrition, the little calorie, breakdown on the side of the box.
No, just like whole foods.
No, not even whole foods. I don't care about quinoa. I just mean if you look at the food and it looks healthy, eat it. If it looks unhealthy, don't eat it. And, nothing really breaks that mold. I mean, there's probably some exception. Like, what's something that looks healthy but isn't?
Pretzels.
No. You can see the salt on them.
Salt looks healthy.
To you. So, a funny story.
Cheese looks healthy.
In the last weekend, we went for a walk, and we were by a river, and we saw a gleaming small little white rock. And Alicia said... It didn't look like
a rock.
And Alicia said, that's salt. And I said, no, it isn't. She said, yes, it is. I said, lick it then, you coward. And she licked it, and it wasn't salt.
It wasn't salt.
So that's something about mindfulness. If you see a rock, lick it.
I was too happy to have licked a rock, to know what a rock tasted. Like, it had no taste. I expected it to taste dirty if it was a rock, but it didn't. But I guess it was beside a fresh stream.
Maybe
so.
It's just... Okay, last point that I had.
All right.
Was about the general gamification of life. Do you know what that word means?
Yes.
Companies use it and apps use it to try and lure people in.
Yes.
And I think we've internalized those structures.
I think so.
Like even when we're talking about to-do lists, a lot of people are obsessed with to-do lists. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about that with productivity and also with artistry and appreciation. And I think when I see a meditation app, I'm like, I don't know about this. Something about this seems wrong. And I think when I was a month ago or so, trying to fix my broken sense of education, and trying to make myself learn, and trying to heal my brain, basically, and thinking of the best ways to do that. Chess was my obvious go-to because I enjoy chess. Mm-hmm. And up to then, I'd been playing chess, but in a kind of really gamified, mindless way, which was small. Okay, so in chess, there's different time formats. Yeah. And there's classical, which is the longest. And that's when you think about each move and you do something called calculating, which is when you calculate lines in advance. So you say, he moves there, I move there, he moves there, I move there, up to 15, 20 moves in advance so you can see how the position will be. Mm-hmm. But I was playing what's called blitz chess, which is like 5 minutes each side, so you have no time to calculate. Yeah. And it almost always just turns to a time struggle, so and it was online, so you're just making moves as quickly as you can to try and make the other person lose on time, run out of time. But I thought, no, I'll just start treating it more seriously. I knew it was a really old game, so it obviously has benefits to the brain and to memory and to visualization, imagination, pattern recognition, things like that. I thought these all seem like general concepts which would help me in other areas.
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought, it's a game. You know,
Yeah.
this is no disrespect to chess at all, but it's just for me, I think I already spent enough time thinking about games,
Mm-hmm.
and I already know well enough how to play certain games.
Yeah.
So my next alternative, which is what you chose, was I'm going to learn a language.
Yes.
So you're halfway through learning French.
Mm-hmm.
Roughly halfway through.
Yeah, I just need to get the nuts and bolts down because I can get by.
Yeah.
But need to get better.
So it's just the fact that learning a language, or what I eventually chose, I'm working on it, learning an instrument, seemed to do the same things to my brain, but in a way which was more classical and less, one, it was less internet-based, because I felt like chess would be very internet-heavy, internet research.
Yeah, I'm not really a worthy opponent to your chess skills.
And I don't know what that is. An instrument is also more tactile.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually building muscle memory and things like that.
Yeah, and you can kind of show people.
I read a poem about general gamification and our need for achievement, accomplishment, productivity, and, to a degree, labels.
Yes, is that going to bring us home?
If you want.
I think it's a good time to bring it home.
Okay, it's called Tags and Badges. I wrote it a few months ago, and I know it's one of your favorites.
Oui.
It goes like this. I am hatched, I am purple patched, and buffed by all my tags and badges. Their gleam renews the clothes I choose, like a painting hung on tags and badges. And I'm 21, and plenty fun has faded out its husk. Freed from every badge and tag, I am spore, I am microcosmivore, beyond, before, the tags and badges I once wore.
Very nice. Aaron's my favorite poet.
Really?
Yeah.
Thanks, but you were just kind of talking about how you don't know many poets.
I know some poets. Langston Hughes.
Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, Aaron's my favorite poet. When I was writing my notes, they divulged into just like a love letter, so maybe you can read that later. But
sure.
Yeah, that's... I hope everyone enjoyed this episode and maybe got you thinking about some of your struggles and maybe gave you some advice from us talking through our own.
We're really in the thick of it. It's a struggle I have every day, is to stay off the internet, so hope everyone doesn't feel bad about that now. Because I think sometimes in our episodes we might make it seem like a really bad activity and that people should feel ashamed for it, but it's something that affects us all. I consider me especially.
Yeah, I don't think shame is remotely beneficial to, like, I know we feel it, but just...
It's literally a universal condition.
Yes.
And we're all in this together.
Yeah, we're trying to find a way to amend our relationship to the internet and to technology, and we'll get through it together.
On that note, you can find us on Instagram at @the_environmental, where we post general reminders to get off Instagram, as well as some other content.
Yeah, some scientific content, artistic, kind of bringing the things that you maybe go on the internet with the intention of seeking out, but then you get distracted by Instagram. We kind of pop it up in your face and say, hey, maybe this is what you should go do. Anyway, everyone, hope you have a great
day.